learn more about what this is all about.
Yeah, sharing on YouTube.
For everybody's
And
information,
YouTube too.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
and it's continuing on. Ku and I attended Harp.
Uh-huh.
I was one of the 88 that says yes to
Yes.
the Constitution, and he said no.
How many said no?
And
Some guys are always adverse.
Paka
I'm a boycotter.
did not even go to the convention.
He
because had some
boycotted the convention.
Right.
Oh, man, we're gonna have a good time tonight. I've been reading the Constitution about 5 times, studying it.
You probably know more about it than we do.
Try
Well, I do.
Yeah.
Actually,
I
reading
haven't read it all.
it gives me a lot of questions because I've read a lot about the Hawaiian sovereignty movement, and I know there are people for this and against it, and I've heard reasons why. And so it's going to be great to explore that subject with people who really matter because you come from here, you live around here, and you're going to help people understand it
Oops,
that don't understand it. So.
You're hitting the mic, you're hitting the mic.
One other thing that we are going to try to do tonight, and we tried it the last time Fred and I did this, was have callers call in.
We need 2 and mics 2 and 3 to speak again.
Okay.
Hello,
Testing,
testing, 1,
1,
2.
2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Hello, test.
2 up, little in. I got it.
Hello, testing, 1, 2, 3, hello, test.
So if we have call-ins,
As high as it goes.
Hello, testing.
Don't whisper.
so if we have
Is
call-ins.
this okay? Sounds sound like, okay, sorry, as long as you talk at a normal, it'll be fine.
So if we have call-ins, the heads, we won't be wearing this, correct me if I'm wrong, Lynn, but we won't be wearing these headsets until we have a call-in.
You only need them for the call-ins.
Okay.
Unless you want to hear the music we're playing or anything else.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good plan.
Yeah. Are you going to play the same music we had
Oh,
in the last?
that, yes, from that album, or that CD,
Yeah.
and then promos similar,
Okay.
like we did
And
last
will
time.
we won't hear the music when it's playing?
Only if you have this on.
Okay,
If you have that in, you'll hear everything that goes out on the board.
all right. Now I've got the mic in the right place and I can't see anything. in my notes.
How long is the show going to be?
2 hours.
We have 2 hours scheduled, but,
Music in between?
well, actually, it's up to us. If we run out of gas at 7 o'clock, then
Take a
we're
music
out.
break?
No,
It
we're
might
out.
be the opposite.
Yeah. Or if we get really tangled up with the stuff and we want to talk more, we can go as long as you've got the stamina to do it. So.
Perfect.
I'll just say this, I just got back from the East Coast last night at 10 o'clock. So my eyes
Good
are,
morning.
my eyes are already still crossed and I'm not sure what time it is. So, but I'm gonna do the best I can. How long, so did you, either one of you grow up in Kohala?
That's it.
I did,
No.
but not,
Neither one, so where did you grow up?
I grew up on Oahu
Oh, okay.
and then moved to Maui in 1980.
Oh,
He's lying.
And then I've been here for about 10 years, 12
10 years in
yeah.
Waimea?
Yeah.
And what
Well,
about you?
the important thing about him that he didn't say anything about was where he was born.
I was born in Louisiana.
Ah, all right. I'm sure Paka didn't come from Louisiana, did he?
Yeah. So my dad was a Navy man, Cherokee Irish gentleman. Met my mom in Hawaii. She's a pure Hawaiian.
Yeah.
The last living pure Hawaiian in my family, in fact. She passed away. She was the last living pure Hawaiian in my family.
Yeah.
Met her on Oahu and married her there. My older sister was born there. Then he got transferred to the East Coast. He was a ship welder for the Navy. And me and my 2 younger brothers were born there. And he passed away when I was 6 years old. And there was a lot of racism against my mom and sister who are more dark-skinned than me and my 2 younger brothers. So she decided to move us back to Hawaii. The first place we moved to was Nanakuli. And that skin color kind of switched the opposite way around. Me and my 2 younger brothers on
So
the
now
wider
you get
side.
beat up.
That's one of the things I'm very disappointed in the United States, is introducing racism to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Spread throughout the community.
when I was principal in Nanaikopono, in Nanakuli, I was principal of the school, he was one of the students.
I know, I do.
Wow.
When I was
Where were you born? You were
Honolulu.
Honolulu. And when did you come to the Big Island?
Almost 25 years ago.
Well, I got here in the 80s. My wife and I didn't know each other when we both moved here, but I've been here about 30 years, 35 years. And I'll lose track of my age. So how old are you?
Hey, Bert?
How old are you?
I'm about a year younger than Fred.
Fred's 72.
We both went. to
He's not
Columbia
72.
together.
Just kidding. How old are you, Fred?
Yeah, well,
You told me
I'm
already.
80, I'm 80.
80, okay.
80.
Oh, you're only 80?
So 77, 80,
I'm 79 for another couple more months.
And
I'm 24.
Paka, all right. Let me know when you're ready.
Okay, so I'll tell you when we got 10, she'll put up 10 seconds.
All right, I don't
Okay,
need.
she's gonna play John Keawekane music after our promo, if you want to hear it.
Yeah, so Fred mentioned that when I was growing up in Nanakula, I went to Nani Kapono School, and he was the principal at the school during that time.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that when you first
So
met?
Fred, when's your birthday?
November 24th.
Wow.
Mine's November the 18th. How about that?
Mine's
Oh,
November
you're
1st.
you're only about half a year older than me then.
Wanna listen to
Will
the
you
music?
introduce, please? I don't know who that was, but there was a Hawaiian guy speaking Hawaiian.
It's John Keawekane.
So I wanted to share a brief history on the Constitution in Hawaii to kind of kick us off on the Constitution discussion for my Aupuni.
Okay, you want to do that right away, or do you want to kind of?
I think the Kupuni gets to move
So I
first.
think what I'm going to do is just go around and give you each a couple of minutes to introduce yourselves and tell us what your point of view may be, whatever, however you want to do that, and then we can kind of jump in and talk.
Kupuna first.
10 seconds.
Yeah.
10 seconds.
Fred is a few months older, so he's first. Who is second? I'm 24.
I will go by random.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
I have no idea what I'm going to say.
Well, that's even better.
Aloha, Kohala. This is Bob Martin, and you're listening to KNKR Radio, Kohala Radio. This is the Kohala Conversations show, and we're getting ready to have a really good time this evening, I'll tell you that. I'm sitting around the table with three of the folks that have agreed and generously to come in and talk on the radio about their point of view concerning Hawaiian sovereignty. And it's a pleasure to do that. I want to say my preamble, though, first before we do that, because I think it's really important. Kohala Conversations is a way to get things that matter to the people in Kohala on the table so that they can be talked about by people who care about them. And we are entertaining all kinds of views in every different direction, as long as it is a factor in the life and lifestyle of Kohala. So, and I also want to acknowledge, just real quickly, that there is a missing ingredient here tonight, in that we've got a Halle boy from Virginia moderating a discussion about Hawaiian sovereignty. And what I would really hope for the Kohala Radio is to fix that someday and have a host here, either a man or a woman who was born and raised in this community and has a grassroots understanding of all the nuances and the cultures here that you can't get if you're a Halle guy, even if I've been here 30 years. So I'm inviting you to come forward, and if you have friends who may be interested in doing that on Kohala Radio, please let us know. We'll give you all the training you need, and you can have a good time doing this with me, and later on your own if you like. All right, with that caveat, I want to go around the table and let our guests, three guests, introduce themselves, and just take a minute or two, or however long you want. Fred, you may have to take longer. So we have Fred Cachola, Clarence Ching, and Isaac Harp. And that would be Fred. Clarence is going to be called Ku, and Isaac is going to be called Paka. So Fred, why don't we start with you? Give us a few minutes on where you're coming from, what you're up to, and so forth on Hawaiian sovereignty currently.
Aloha, aloha kohala, aloha kaku. Thanks, Bob, for putting us on this show. It's a pleasure, really, and an honor for three of us who have been heavily involved in the issue of Hawaiian sovereignty to just share our mana'o. And each of us have different perspectives. My mana'o comes from, over 40 years of studying our history. I'd like to consider myself as a historian, and that was my profession. So certainly what happened to my ancestors and what happened to all of us in Hawaii has been of continuing interest to me. And of course, when I was in college and earlier than that, when I learned about the illegal overthrow and all of the ensuing issues that emerged from that, it's been a continuous study for me. So really, my perspective is a very strong personal and professional one in learning more about what the issues were, and more importantly, what can we do about them?
And in sharing that information with people who don't exactly know, having not been at the convention or been involved up until...
Yes, so it's been a really strong two-way process. One is getting accurate, up-to-date, current historical facts about what happened, what caused those events to happen, what were the subsequent results, what was good, what was bad, and how it affected us, and then trying to find peace with myself, I think, as a Hawaiian, to reconcile what went wrong.
Right.
And so my perspective on sovereignty was really lifted when we were given an opportunity to run as delegates for an election, and of course we all know this was started during the Abercrombie regime when the governor was saying, hey, Hawaiians ought to be given a chance to determine their own government. And he began a bill and got it funded and then gave the money to all, and all consequently said, yeah, it's a good idea. Why don't we try to get people registered as voters, and they can do an election process and get delegates to sit down and talk about sovereignty. And I saw all that as good, because up to that point, there were many, many different gatherings, shall we say, of Hawaiians. And this AHA, the one that we're going to be talking about, is not the first. And I want to keep emphasizing that to my friends out in Kohala. This AHA was not the first, and it probably will not be the last time a group of Hawaiians will sit together and try to figure out how best to reconcile the historical facts of what went wrong.
All right. So why don't we move on to the next youngest member of our group, Clarence Ching, or we're going to call him Ku tonight. So Ku, tell us where you're coming from.
Before we go there, let me say that my name that I wanted to use is really longer than Ku. It's Ku Kaukai. Happens to be the name of one of my fourth great-grandfathers. It happened that I was delving in things like lua, and they recommended that we all have Hawaiian names, and so I adopted this name, and for short it became Ku. So I'm Ku. Was born in Oahu. I've known Fred for a number of years. In fact, it really goes back to about 1950 or so, when we were both students at Kamehameha.
Wow.
And I'm doing that, I'm saying that because Kamehameha being a Hawaiian school, one would expect that it would really be stressing the teaching of Hawaiian history. And I think Fred will agree with me that when we were students there, that Hawaiian history was one of the last things that they ever mentioned, if they mentioned it at all.
And this was the 1950s.
This is the, yeah.
Yes.
Well, actually, the late 40s.
Late 40s,
Late
right
40s.
after the war,
Into
right
the
in that
50s,
time
yeah.
frame, okay.
He graduated in
So
53, I
history-
graduated in 54.
History wasn't really a major part of the curriculum that they taught?
Well, they were teaching Hawaiian history from the American point of view.
Point of view, okay.
And, you know, Hawaii was annexed in,
So there was no
1898.
there was no conversation much about the overthrow and usurping of
they
the.
mentioned the overthrow, they mentioned annexation. But most of the Hawaiian history that I know, and I believe everybody else on the table here knows, stuff that we've had to learn from, we had to go from being brainwashed, and I'm using this really strong term,
Yes.
to learning what history is all about.
What really happened.
But I think that's enough about me. We can go on
Okay.
to Paka here.
All right, so we'll get back to your point of view, but it's interesting that you and Fred are pretty much maybe opposites here in certain ways.
Well,
We'll see.
I don't know that we're that opposite.
No,
It's just
I
that
don't think so.
in the very end, it sort of turned out that way, but
Okay.
I don't know that we're that
But
far
I
different from each
can't
other.
wait to hear this. I'm loving this. All right, now, Paka, tell us your story. You're the next youngest.
Aloha, Bob.
Aloha.
It's my pleasure to be here with two of my favorite kupuna, Fred, who I know as Keawekane-Stafford, and Ku, who I know as Kukawakahi, which is the full name that he uses. And my perspective on this whole thing is, starts, I guess, from my childhood memories, being taught to pledge allegiance to the American flag, taught about so-called annexation and all that part of the history. So growing up, I thought we were Americans, and I didn't really discover the truth until maybe a quarter century ago, about 25 years ago.
Wow.
And boy, that I was furious.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of drove me into developing alcohol problems and dependency on Pakalolo. And you know, basically in internal rage was boiling in me. I was very upset of being lied to all those years and being forced to pledge allegiance to the occupier's flag.
Yeah.
So I decided to get involved in things that meant a lot to me, which is the ocean. My family has a long history of being fisher people in Hawaii. So I got into ocean protection, ocean resource protection. So I got involved with at the state level with the State Bottlefish and Gilded Task Force, trying to preserve some of the resources by getting some controls over those. And then I went into the federal arena with the Federal Fishery Management Council. I was the chairman of the First Native Indigenous Rights Advisory Panel to the Western Pacific Fishery Council.
Wow.
And I was under that for 2 terms. And during my second term, I became a member of all advisory panels to the Federal Fishery Management Council because I saw a pattern going on. If they can't get something that the large commercial fishers want in one advisory panel, they carry it to the different advisory panels to try and pretend that it was coming from the ground up when it was actually coming from the top down. But I was so frustrated with the destruction of the lobster fishery it was crashed twice. Instead of shutting it down, they decided to reduce the mesh of the lobster trap down to 2 inch by 2 inch and allow the retention of buried females and any size lobster. They're taking lobster with the tails as small as your thumb.
Wow. What year was that? What year was
That was in the late 90s, and in 2000, I decided that I had enough. They were not following any of our recommendations, so I wrote a draft management plan that eventually led in December of 2000 to the designation of the Northwestern Hawaiian Islands Coral Reef Ecosystem Reserve. It was announced by President Clinton at the National Geographic Auditorium in Washington, D.C., and my wife had the honor of introducing him to the audience there. And at that time, it was a 84 million acre marine protected area, the largest in the world at that time. And I'm proud that some other Pacific Islanders noticed this large protected area and decided to create their own marine protected areas, some even larger than this. And then for whatever his reason, G.W. Bush, President of the United States, decided to layer a monument over the Coral Reef Ecosystem Reserve to establish another layer of protection, so I appreciate that. I guess he was trying to promote himself as, you know, the great environmentalist that he is. And now there's
That was crusade, really?
now there's a recent effort that is just being launched by many Kanaka Maoli. So I use the term Kanaka Maoli because that's what we are. A lot of people misrepresent the word Hawaiian. Hawaiian is not the race of the Aboriginal people of Hawaii. Hawaiian is the name of the citizens of the Hawaiian Kingdom, regardless of race. So in the Hawaiian Kingdom, we had Japanese, Chinese, Portuguese that were Hawaiian. So it's the nationality of the people, not the race of the people. And the race is Kanaka Maoli. And there is no such thing as Native Hawaiian, large N or small n. That was something fabricated by the federal government to put us in their classification, their little boxes. So a small n, you're 50% or more of the blood of the Aboriginal people. A large case n, you're less than 50%. So it was a clever divide and conquer tactic that they tossed on us early on, where some Kanaka Maoli could qualify for certain benefits and others were left out. So it created a lot of division in the community, so I'm very upset about that. But anyway, this new effort to protect the Northwest Hawaiian Islands is to extend the protection to the 200-mile exclusive economic zone boundary. And that will make it, once again, the largest marine protected area in the world. A lot of Kanaka Maoli that I associate with, they don't understand, they feel that we're giving up control to the federal government, but in reality, the federal government already controls it. What we're trying to do is use their laws to protect our resources for us, so that when we do get our control of our nation back, we have something left. You know? So there's a lot of interest in ocean mining, and deep sea fishing is always occurring, long lining, and there's trawl nets out there. Fortunately, they're banned in our exclusive economic zone at this time, but long lining is a concern because they lay, one long line boat can lay 20 to 40 miles of line with thousands of hooks, and you know that adds up to millions of hooks a day in the ocean. And a lot of times they circle the main island. There's so much line and hooks in the water. They circle the main islands, and the small boat local fishermen don't have much of a chance to get the fish because the fish need to get through all those hooks and lines and bait and everything. So what we're trying to do is increase the benefit to the many, the small boat fishermen, rather than allowing the benefit to go to the few that own the large fishing vessels.
As well as to preserve the resources.
Yeah. So I've done a lot of activity in marine resources, and I also participated in the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, serving as the chairman of, they call us the Indigenous Forum. That's all the people of color. They lump us all together in the same group. And you know, it really made me upset when we first went into the conference hall. They put the non-governmental organizations and things in the front of us. We were at the back of the bus. Yeah, it kind of reminded me of the Mississippi days that the Negroes were made to sit in the back of the bus.
Yeah.
So I was actually insulted by that. And in my report, I wrote something up on that regardless of where you are today, at some time in history, you came from an indigenous person yourself.
Well, it sounds like you've made quite a contribution in the areas that you've been involved in.
Yeah.
That's impressive, it really is.
And, in the past, I began to get more involved in the Hawaii independence movement, because I think the United States has shown that they're not good stewards as occupiers of our nation.
Yeah.
They continually violate the international laws of occupation, and for the survival of our future and the future of our nation, that's the reason I got involved in this stuff. And I want to do as much as I can now, because what I'm unable to accomplish during my lifetime will fall upon my children and my grandchildren.
Yes, it will.
So whatever we can do now, the sooner we get everything straightened up, the better.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, thank you. Well, with those introductions, we're going to take a short break. This is Kohala Radio, KNKR 96.1 FM in Kohala, and we'll be back in about a minute and a half. Thank you.
You know, I think with my, we're okay. I really think it might do well to just, for each of us to talk about our perspectives on what the AHA was proposed, how it was proposed, because there are many different feelings about the whole entire.
Yeah, so that's a good point of view. There are a lot of different ways we could do this, and I want to do it the way that you're feeling the most comfortable with. So, would it be good if we went around and you just said the 2 or 3 most important things you think are why you support it, or why?
I'm not talking about the results of the AHA.
The birth of
Just
the
the
process.
birth, how did the AHA come to be?
Oh,
Okay, because there are a lot of concerns on how it came to be, not
Okay.
just what it produced.
so we can talk about how it came to be
Yes.
and get opinions, because you all have different opinions about how it came to be. And then we'll take another break in about 20 minutes. We'll do that for 20 minutes, and then we'll decide where we want to go from there, okay? So let's talk about how it came to be. Anybody want to start?
Well, I can begin with my perspective.
Yeah, let's follow the same.
Okay,
same
we'll follow the same pattern, okay? So, Marika, we're ready when you are.
No, we're not.
No, we're not.
She's gonna give us 10
I
seconds.
thought she did.
No, I give it to her.
That's what I saw you do.
Yeah, you saw
I
me.
saw you back here.
You saw me.
By the way, is this being recorded?
Yes,
It is.
Yes.
So we could take it anywhere too, with your permission.
yes. Well, we've actually been playing the last one of yours, and we played it in the hour before this. So we have part 1 and then part 2.
Yes, we can make that available.
Oh, so you got one head start on us. That's
You gotta catch up.
We actually, okay, 10 seconds. It's actually been played maybe 4 or 5 times the first hour. Go.
All right, this is Bob Martin and Kohala Conversations. We're talking about the Hawaiian sovereignty movement with 3 distinguished participants in that over the many years that they've been alive. Just want to add one thing before we move forward is that as you listen to us, if you have questions, we would love to get them. That would help fuel us, and we want to address whatever you think you're interested in and you maybe have some doubts about or have an opinion about. We'll take all of that, and we'd love to hear from you. And that number is 884-5657. 884-KNKR, which is 884-5657. So give us a call if you want to talk. All right, so what we're going to start out with now at this stage is to talk about the 3 opinions sitting here around the table about how the convention or the AHA came to be over the last several years or longer. And we're going to let Fred Cachola start us off on that, and we'll see what Fred's got to say.
Yeah, aloha again, my koala friends. You know, a lot of people today call me Fred, but those of you who grew up with me in Halaula, you know, I'm still Junior Cachola, the plantation kid from Halaula camp. And so I hope I'm reaching some of my old friends at Halaula and Makapala and Halaula and all those places. But for me, you know, the whole issue of what do Hawaiians do when we learn how wrong we were in the illegal overthrow? What do we do? And while many of us have been talking about it and meeting, and I helped to start the Home Rule movement way back with John Dominus, and we participated in elections and forums and many workshops talking about sovereignty, but never was there an opportunity that was presented like it was a year ago when OA said, you know what, we're going to have as many Hawaiians registered to vote as we can. And from those who have registered to vote, we will ask delegates to run from different places. And the number of delegates they proposed was 40. And of the 40, 7 were to come from this island. And I looked around and I said, what an opportunity, wow. We're really gonna have 40 people elected and to sit down for 2 months and talk about something that never happened before. And it's all paid for, right? Which became a problem later on, where that money came from. But I saw this as an opportunity that never happened before. And so I quickly looked around my friends, talked to my friends in Kohala, and they said, I don't see anybody running for it, and maybe you ought to think about it. Then I thought very hard about it, and it was an issue that bothered me for many, many years. And I said, hey, here's a chance to share my manao and to work with other Hawaiians to resolve some issues. Why don't we do it? So I ran. And of course, by my running with the conditions that were there, I saw the AHA, or this convention, as an opportunity to make things right. To make things right. And I didn't see it as some people thought, as a preconceived group convening primarily to answer the call from the Department of Interior, which was simultaneously saying, hey, by the way, you guys, Hawaiians, if you form your own government, we got some rules on how you can be with us.
So that's interesting. So in parallel, the Department of Interior, working with Hawaii, was saying, we get it together, and then separate from that, this whole AHA was beginning to take shape, and the setup was to elect people to go to it and so forth. So that, but they weren't connected, you're saying.
Well, there were people who were making the connection.
Making the connection, but you think they were separate. You
I-
don't think,
I-
in other words, you don't think the United States government, Department of Interior, had much to do with the AHA?
No.
Okay.
No.
They
No, I
weren't
didn't think
driving
so.
the
And I
bus. no.
didn't think it was already preconceived that the delegates would automatically, no matter what, be a set-up system to go with that alternative. I really didn't believe that. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I ran, because I was not gonna let that happen.
Right. Now, do you want to take it a little further and just say, for those who don't know, what happened to that whole election system? And...
Well, maybe Ku can take it
Okay,
from
well,
there.
let's switch over to Ku. Let's go to Ku.
So what happened
Ching,
after,
Ku? That's
while the election was still going on, delegates were still being campaigning, what happened?
He's got his own point of view. I can see the gleam in his eye over there, so go ahead, Ku.
Well, as I started out early on in the introductory phase, we really didn't know our history for all those years. In fact, almost over a century. And we found out, for instance, that there was a lot of mischief that went on at the time of annexation. Usually, or the normal way to annex a country, for instance, would be for both the obtaining country and the giving up country to talk about it and come to some kind of agreement put on paper, like in a treaty, and which also would require a certain number of votes, like a supermajority of 2/3. And although we had this overthrow of the Queen started in 1893, then we had this bunch of people who became the provisional government. They became the Republic of Hawaii, and they wanted to be annexed. And so it was all fine and good up to that point, except that in 1897, there was a large objection from Hawaiians to this annexation process. And a large percentage of Hawaiians signed a petition saying we don't want annexation. And my best guess, or the best guess, is that 90% of the Hawaiians did not want annexation. And so I believe, or historians believe, that this petition to oppose annexation took hold in Washington, and a 2/3 vote of the senators that was necessary for annexation didn't happen. And so the forces realigned themselves and all that, and they came up with this new plan, which was to annex Hawaii by using a joint resolution. A joint resolution being a domestic document of the United States that had no power or authority beyond its borders, Hawaii being a foreign country at that time.
Internationally recognized foreign country at that time.
Yes.
Yes.
Never lost that
Yes.
in all of the scuffles here.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so these, I'll call it conspirators if you want to, came up with this idea of using a joint resolution, like I said, that was a domestic instrument. And they were able to get a majority, and so they used an instrument that wasn't really designed for the job to get a job done that was slightly illegal.
Which didn't really get the job done either.
As we found out 100 years later, it did not. And so, I believe that as a nation, the United States has been trying to get some kind of legitimate control over Hawaii and all of the lands that it has acquired in the meantime, including national parks, including Pearl Harbor, Hickam, Schofield, all of that. And so some Americans among us have opted to make Hawaii a subservient entity to the United States, starting with, well, I don't know what you can say start, but among other things being the Akaka bill that started around 2000. So they tried doing it by legislation, and that didn't work. And I believe that what is happening now is the solution to the not having Akaka kind of situation. And so you now have the Department of Interior getting into the picture. You have possibly the President of the United States, Barack Obama, who grew up in Hawaii, being part of the thing, as there's talk of him doing an executive order to make Hawaii, to make Hawaii like an Indian tribe.
So that whole strategy, you're saying, is sort of a one way to get the Hawaii sovereignty issue off the table from the
I
point of
believe
view
so,
of the United
especially-
States.
Especially when the United States does not have good title to all the lands that it has in its possession.
And in spite of the fact that the Indian tribes and those treaties with them have never really shown to be very beneficial to the people who are involved in the treaty,
Not generally.
not generally.
Yeah.
Lots of evidence to the contrary.
Right. Right. Especially when we know that their standards of living are low, their health.
Right. So
Situation's bad.
you're not for moving in the direction of Native Hawaiian tribe as negotiated with the United States through the Department of Interior on a treaty like that. You're not in favor of that.
That's true.
Okay.
But part of that mechanism, though, is that the state of Hawaii now and its political interests have decided that that having the Hawaiian nation, if you want to call it that, being part of the United States is a good idea. And so we've had this movement in the state legislature and government to, actually acknowledge Hawaiians and
So you think,
recognize them.
you're saying the state government tends to disagree with you in saying that maybe working at an arrangement like this might be good?
And I believe that's
the
been
state
happening
level.
in the last few years with Act 195, for instance.
Right.
That has been the pivotal thing that has brought up the AHA, for instance.
Okay, and then if being a Native Hawaiian tribe under that whole arrangement isn't going to work, what do you favor? What are you? Where would you take this?
You really need to ask me that.
Well, sort of.
I think that, before all of this has happened, the involvement of the United States in the internal affairs of the Kingdom of Hawaii, and that we now feel that we are being occupied by the United States, that the United States should deoccupy, go home, and put us back into the position that we were in before the overthrow.
So you would reestablish, or we would re-recognize the sovereignty of the nation, the Hawaiian nation, as it existed in 1893.
Yeah.
So, by some hook or crook way to do that, I mean, I don't
Well,
think hook or
it's not
crook,
really hook or crook,
It's
I
not-
believe.
I used the wrong words. It's a complicated path to get there, but that's recognizing the Hawaiian sovereignty never got dissolved or dealt with, and
Yes,
is
because
where
if
you're
we
headed.
go back and look at international law,
Yes,
one sovereign nation cannot unmake another sovereign nation.
Right.
And so, from that viewpoint, the kingdom continues to exist. It's the government of the kingdom that was disrupted.
And
Bob, I really, if I can just add to the points that are really critical points,
yes.
is that many people who felt that this AHA was put together by the state to form a Hawaiian government so that that Hawaiian government would realign itself on a government-to-government relationship with the United States will legitimize all that has happened.
Right. So
And that legitimatizing, saying, well, the Hawaiians form a government, they did this, and they decided to go this way. It makes it all perfect.
yeah. So
And people were saying that's what this AHA was all about, and that's concerned me.
So, Fred, let me see if I can say what I heard, and you tell me if I'm wrong. You're saying that people, and I believe this might be you too, believe that if we could get something going, I say we, if the Hawaiians could get something going with this federal government, like an Indian tribe, recognition of some sort, that could lead to what some other ways. So help me. I can tell by your face you got it wrong.
I
Tell me
think
if I'm right.
you missed my point.
Help
There are people like Abercrombie was one, people like John Wahea were others who felt, hey, let us form our government. And by the way, there's this offer from the U.S. Department of Interior for us to become a government-to-government relationship with the U.S.
Right.
And that might not be a bad idea.
Okay, I didn't say it right, so.
Yeah, that might not be a bad, and many others say, no. If that's why you're forming this, registering Hawaiians to vote, and that's the reason why we're having this AHA, then people like Fred Cachola said, I'm gonna do everything I can to prevent that from happening. And that's why I ran.
Okay.
And there were times, well, we can
Actually,
talk
that's
about-
why I ran too.
Because the word was out, this thing was set, is a setup. And I say, it cannot be, you cannot let 120 Hawaiians get together, and you telling me that a majority of them already decided we're gonna go with the US, that cannot happen. And so, as far as I'm concerned, it did not happen.
So you're saying that the Constitution that was passed did what you wanted it to do, which was to move in the right direction, but not give away anything in long-term sovereignty as how to get there. It got
The
you started.
Constitution that we presented and came up with is a document for Hawaiian nation.
Right.
Not necessarily a gateway to the US.
A gateway to becoming some sort of like an Indian tribe or something.
That's right.
It's a constitution as a gateway to an Hawaiian nation
Good.
to be determined. It's coming soon, but we don't know exactly what it was going to be. But you're not in favor of it be with the federal government as Government to government.
It's a responsibility of the citizens of that nation to make that
Right,
decision,
okay,
not the people who convene the convention.
okay. All right, so we're coming up on a break maybe, but I think I'm gonna do 5 more minutes with Paka, because you've been sitting there
Patiently.
patiently with your oar in your hand, I can see, so let's paddle some.
Mahalo, Bob. Somehow your initial question got bypassed about the election process.
Yeah, what happened?
Right.
So
Yeah.
the candidacy is based on race, so it's a racist process, and was funded by Office of Hawaiian Affairs Fund, which is considered state funds. So the Grassroots Institute Hawaii filed a lawsuit to stop that election, funding of that election with taxpayer dollars.
Right.
So the court did order the stoppage of that election.
And that was the Supreme Court Justice
Yes.
who did that.
Kennedy.
So they stopped the election from occurring, and then Aupuni, the organization that was created to run this, decided to let everyone who applied to become a candidate to participate in the process. So no one was a delegate, no one was elected. They were all simply individuals. So in the end, 88 individuals drafted this constitution, including individuals that are not residents of Hawaii. Under Hawaiian Kingdom law, there is a residency requirement to participate even in election of representatives.
In the new Constitution, there's a Hawaiian residency requirement, right?
I'm not sure, I haven't read it.
Oh,
In my opinion, it's a worthless piece of garbage. And it's pretty clear that it was designed from people I've talked to. They've read it, and it's basically designed to support federal recognition. The federal recognition effort began actually back in 1993 when William Clinton, President of the United States, apologized for the unlawful overthrow of our government, and decided to find some way to reconcile with the Hawaiian community.
Which means what?
Which
means what?
Yeah, which means what? So a couple of years later, I asked Clayton, who was the chair of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, what's happening with this reconciliation process? And he said straight out to me, federal recognition is the reconciliation process. I told him that's bullshit. You know, under federal, sorry for the language, under federal recognition,
that could get me.
you know, under federal recognition, you are under the plenary authority of the United States. And that is like a parent-child type relationship. They order you to do something, you do it. They give you something, you take it whether you like it or not. If they want to take it back, they can do that. And I believe that's where the term Indian giver came from. They give it to them and they take it back.
So,
but anyway,
so you did not go to the convention, I take it?
no, I decided to boycott that because I see that.
Boycott it.
Yeah, I see that as a continuation of the federal recognition efforts, better known as the Kaka bill, that started about 16 years ago. The Kanaka Maoli community and supporters of the truth opposed that effort for 1.5 decades, and we were successful in blocking that all the way up to this point. And now the state has gotten involved to establish this voter role for this Aupuni process. There's many people who have been deceased for years on that role. How did they get on there? It's not a voluntary role. Anybody that signed up for any type of benefits from the Office of Hawaiian Affairs and stuff, their names were pillaged from various lists and added to this role. So it's a very criminal type activity that is behind all of this process.
Well, I can see right now that we don't lack for any strong opinions. All right, it's about time where we're going to cool the steam down a little bit, take a break, and we'll be back in a minute or so.
Yeah, and I think that's, I thought Crew was gonna say nobody got elected, and so we all went. But, and he went.
No, this is good, this is good. But there was more than 88 people worked on the thing.
Voted on it.
150 people.
Yeah.
At one time or another, 150 people. But there were 201 people who said,
Sorry, but
we
turn on
want
it,
to be
get better.
delegates. But 201,
150 worked on it.
and I think that
150 worth of work didn't go into the thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
But-
what I understand.
they
What
were,
was that Wayne's name? She did some reports on the whole process.
Oh, Milham.
Yeah, William. She
see,
did.
there were
some-
201 people that said, we don't mind being delegates. And so Aupuni said, okay, then you're all invited. There's no election. 201 of you can come together as individuals and work on this. But there were conditions. You gotta commit for 20 days, it's gonna be here, it's gonna be this. And here are the conditions, and you can subsidize this much, but we're not gonna pay for transportation, blah, blah, blah. How many of you will accept? Then it came down from 201 to 150.
From 201 down to
150, said, we accept these conditions.
So 3/4 of the people decided to go.
Which I was surprised.
a lot of them
Because
from
it
the
meant-
mainland, right? I read the numbers correctly.
Yeah,
quite a
because it meant people would get, young people, I don't know, they just quit their jobs or they took leave or I don't know how they managed to do this. Students who missed final exams, they didn't care. They wanted to meet.
Well, there were ways, Fred, there were ways.
Well, there were ways, but it meant some people had to
Because-
make some adjustments.
Yeah, because the important thing was that you get your name on the sign-in sheet every day,
Yeah, yeah.
or
well,
80% of the days.
Yeah, but
And so if you came for the last 10 minutes and put your name on, it was like you were there the
so,
whole
so
day.
as it came out, before we go into, okay, what happened at the war, I think we just gotta finish. There are 150 people who decided, you're not representing anybody, you're just representing yourself, you are invited to come. They said, okay, we will.
Yeah,
And I
so
thought
so
that
in
was-
essence, we became participants and not
Not
delegates.
delegates. Yeah. We became participants and not delegates. And when I first saw the group, I was delighted because it ran a gamut from 21-year-old to 90-year-olds. It ran a gamut from academicians to young, angry Hawaiians to, it was a good cross-representation of the Native Hawaiian community.
One good thing that I
I
thought.
cannot
was-
agree with you.
Yeah.
There's been thousands of volunteer effort going on for years and years and years, and this process, the participants are actually paid. It's a compensated participation, not a volunteer effort.
Where did that money come from?
Yeah, that comes from the state.
State.
Yeah, OHA.
10 seconds.
I call it stipend. You have to.
All right, this is Bob Martin again, and we're back talking about Hawaiian sovereignty with Fred Cachola, Clarence Ching, and Isaac Harp. Clarence being known as Ku and Isaac as Paka. And we have three sets of strong opinions around the table, and it's really quite interesting. We had talked, by the way, we are interested in getting your phone calls, so please call us, give us a question. There's three different sets of opinions around the table, as I said, and if you call, you can probably get several answers to any question you want to ask. So, having said that, what we were talking about was how we got to the convention and actually who came to it and so forth. And it might be good to have somebody summarize that because we haven't exactly cleared that hurdle. So, Greg, you want to take a shot?
Yes,
at that?
sure. You know, the election was going on as planned when the Grassroots Institute sued, and the Supreme Court says, yes, you're right, you cannot convene this election, you cannot count votes, put away the ballots. That's the court order. You're using public funds, there's question about this, stop. So Aupuni said, okay, the election stops, but why don't all of you folks who wanted to become delegates, and there were 201, they were sent a letter by Aupuni said, instead of having only 40, you are all invited to come, invited. Now here are the conditions. Those from the mainland, we will subsidize you $250 a day for expenses incurred. We cannot buy you transportation, we cannot buy you car rental, we cannot buy you lodging. This is $250 for you to do whatever you need to in order to attend. For those from the neighbor islands, they say $200 a day. No lodging, no transportation. And then for those in Honolulu, it was 50. And the conditions were, you gotta commit to come to 20 days. And we already have a site, that's where it's gonna be. Anyway, there were conditions, and when those conditions were passed out to the 201 former delegates, 150 said, we accept. We accept. And they said, we will accept to come as individuals to meet at Manueli Golf Course for 20 days, 9 o'clock in the morning to 5 in the afternoon, and convene to discuss sovereignty.
And so that's what happened.
That's what happened.
That's how the convention came to be.
Let me throw another reason or something in here.
Sure, cool.
It seems that over the years, there has been at least one organization that's been working in the Hawaiian area that has been working on getting contracts from the United States. No bid contracts, and with very good, well, no bid contracts. And I believe that these guys are doing so well that they did not want to have their apple cart upset. And that they really wanted to keep their kind of status quo in place. In other words, to keep this gravy train thing going. And I believe that there is some kind of conspiracy going on between 2 or 3 different organizations that wanted to keep this practice going, and that I believe that they did a lot to guide the process to a certain kind of result. And I know that this is sort of nebulous, talking about organizations and all that, but from my vantage point, this is what I believe was one of the moving kinds of currents within the larger current.
So, Ku, I'm hearing you say that there are organizations who are benefiting by contracts with the federal government that, and you didn't say what kind of organizations they are or anything, but that they, because of that advantage, they guided this process towards the convention.
Well, I won't say that they guided it, but they added to the momentum that
They
went
influenced
toward
it,
this
influenced it
area.
in some way to
Yeah.
move towards the convention and to, for whatever reasons,
and towards federal recognition.
towards federal recognition, government to government.
Yes, so I don't know what
No,
Fred might think about what I just
international.
said, but
But that, towards an Indian, I'm going to call it Indian tribe resolution.
okay.
Government to government could mean a lot of things, kind of thing. But let's just say
Yeah.
Indian tribe resolution versus an international recognition of the Hawaiian nation.
Yeah.
So that they could keep this thing moving along in some direction that isn't going to impinge on their ability to have these no bid contracts. Okay, so there's something going on there as well.
So there's some
what is-
other things that were going on too, is that there are other groups like Kalahui, who've been around for over 20 years. Very active Hawaiian sovereignty, very active group. And they had what I wouldn't call them Kalahui delegates, but there were members of Kalahui in the convention who were in a way saying, fellas, we in Kalahui have been looking at this for years and years and years. We know, we've been to Washington, we've talked, we've lobbied, we've looked at how best we should go. Please, follow our continued lead. And those in the convention said, thank you very much, Kalahui, for all the work you've been going on, and for your opinions and beliefs on what should happen, because you've been there. You've talked about, you've done this, and you're encouraging us to go with the Department of Department of Interior. I don't think so.
Let me clarify that. Kalahui years ago had taken the position of supporting nation within a nation relationship.
That was their position going
Yeah, decades ago.
decades
Yeah.
ago, right?
So over the years, the leadership's position has changed to opposing federal recognition relationship. As they like everybody, we learn more as time goes on, and they learn more as time went on. And back when they did support that, they felt that that might be the only way that the Kanaka Maoli could get any kind of benefits out of this occupation situation. But when Dr. Keanu Sai and other people started exposing international laws and things and outreach on that, they saw that there was a better deal available.
What is Dr. Sai's organization name?
Dr. Keanu Sai?
Yeah, what's the organization he kind of is? I can't remember offhand. But it's a
I'm not sure.
large organization, and it's got the preponderance of Native Hawaiians seem to be saying that this is what we ought to do.
I know he has a Hawaiian Kingdom blog, I believe.
Yeah,
it
that's
is.
what it's,
Yeah.
the Hawaiian Kingdom
Yeah.
organization.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's a historian and a social justice guy that teaches a PhD in the University of Hawaii.
Yeah. So I believe some of the folks that Keawekane-Stafford, Fred, had mentioned, who were with Kalahui in years past, they are on that federal gravy train type mindset, and they do want people they talk to believe that they represent Kalahui, which they do not. They were once members of the organization, but now they're on their different path. And a lot of these individuals, they basically live on federal grants. A lot of them belong to these nonprofit organizations and economic development programs. They all depend on federal grants. And like Kukaukai mentioned, they want this gravy train kind of activity to continue. And I don't want to mention any names, but the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement is one of the organizations that was involved in acquiring these no-bid grants. And the president or executive director at that time, Robin Danner, she's one individual that was involved in the Native Alaska settlement. And they pretty much learned how to do it there, and they brought that to Hawaii. So they were very close with Senator Inouye's office, and they brought that expertise on how to sell out the native peoples to Hawaii.
So that could begin to look a lot like collusion.
And she decided to resign from the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement and has become the president of the Sovereign Council of Hawaiian Homes Associations, and tried to portray it like the Kanaka Maoli or Hawaiians that are on Hawaiian Homes lands. They're the ones that are supporting this Native American recognition type relationship, which is obviously false. A lot of the leadership in the SHA, they call it, Sovereign Council on Hawaiian Homes Association, a lot of them depend on federal grants for a lot of their programs and stuff. And they too, like Robin, want this gravy train of federal money to continue flowing. And a lot of our people on the independent side, we see the potential of a blooming economy, a very successful economy, if we can get the United States to deoccupy our nation. We want control of our nation back. Just the Jones Act, as far as application to shipping things in and out of Hawaii, adds a tremendous financial burden to everyone who lives in Hawaii. So I hope people can listen to what we say and give us a call, ask some questions and stuff, because people need to start learning what's going on. But I don't know if you folks mind, but I want to just go through a brief history of the constitutions of Hawaii, because the Aupuni process has resulted in a constitution being drafted and adopted by 88 of the participants.
We're coming up on the hour, so I'm going to
Okay.
be giving the station ID here. This is KNKR LP 96.1 FM, Kohala. And this is Bob Martin and Kohala Conversations. We're having a good time here talking about the Hawaiian sovereignty movement with Fred, Ku, and Paka. We're going to take a break. I think it may be about 10 minutes here, so because I know there's, I know you've got a list that you want to take a look at in terms of the conventions that have been over the years, I guess. And then I'd like for everyone to ponder while we're thinking here this question. particularly Paka and Ku, if you couldn't take the Constitution the way it was written, and Paka, you didn't go to the convention, what would it take, what changes would have to have been done or made to get you to be there at the table and to get you to say, yes, I approve this Constitution? They're the two questions I have for you two. And Fred, you were there, and so you can respond to all of that if you like, so.
Yeah, I think the next question is, okay, so 150 of us met, and what happened?
And what happened? We're
Yeah.
gonna get to that.
Because I think that explains a lot.
Yeah. So as we do what happened, then we can, I'd like to hear some responses to those questions. And so,
But
I wanna,
besides the Constitution, I think we really we passed two documents. The
the
Constitution.
declaration too,
And the Declaration, and this is just historical facts.
right?
It's just saying, this is historical facts of what happened to the people.
Yes.
And I think this should be looked at very carefully, as well as the Constitution, because what this is saying is, here are the historical facts of the basis on why we continue to have sovereignty.
Yeah, well, yes,
Yeah. This is
And
the
there is a
basis for our
sovereignty
enduring
basis.
sovereignty.
yes.
Yeah.
All right, so Paka, you've got some things you want to say over there.
I just wanted to share a brief history on the constitutional history of the Hawaiian Kingdom. And I want to clarify for the readers, a lot of people may have heard the term Ko Hawai'i Pai Aina. And in the Hawaiian Constitution, that is actually the legal name of the Hawaiian Kingdom. And that name was transferred into English, into the Hawaiian Kingdom. But Kamehameha the Great and his son, first son, Liholiho, also known as Kamehameha II, ruled Hawaii under a monarchical system of common laws and kapu from approximately 1810 to 1824. They were the supreme rulers of the country. Basically a dictatorship. I hate to put it so bluntly, but that's basically what it is. And Kamehameha's second son, Keawekane-Stafford, or Kauikeaouli, took the throne in 1824 as Kamehameha III at the age of 9 years old. Because of his young age, he shared his rule with two kuhinanui. Kuhinanui is similar to a regent or prime minister. The first kuhinanui he shared his rule with was Kahumanu, and then that was followed by his sister Kinau. At the ripe old age of 24, in 1893, Kamehameha III promulgated a Declaration of Rights to protect life, liberty, freedom, and other human rights of the people of Hawaii, and to provide vested interest in the Aina of Hawaii. At the age of 25 in 1840, Kamehameha III promulgated the first constitution for the Hawaiian Kingdom. And that removed his, he voluntarily relinquished his absolute power by doing so. And it created three departments of the government. It was the executive branch, which he was under, and the legislature, which was representatives of the people who were elected by the people, as well as representatives of the ali'i class, which was the House of Nobles. They made up the Legislative Assembly, and there was also the judicial branch. Basically, a similar type government structure to what we have today.
What year was that?
1840.
1840.
Yeah. Okay. And then Hawaii was recognized as an independent nation with a constitutional monarchy in 1843 by Great Britain and France, and then later in 1846 by the United States. And that's when the Hawaiian Kingdom began the effort to develop these international treaty relations. So we developed treaty relations with many, many countries around the world, and those countries have never extinguished the treaties with us, so they're still alive.
Yeah.
So we just need to go back up.
Hawaii had 90 embassies and other offices all around the world,
Yeah.
with every recognized government at the time.
Yeah, so Hawaii was a very small but well-known, popular nation.
Very well known.
Back in the early 1800s, early
Had
mid
really
1800s.
reached out to other countries, being in the middle of the Pacific. That was quite a story.
And then from that point on, we had a new constitution that was introduced and promulgated in 1852. And then the latest constitution after that was in 1864. And that was promulgated by Kamehameha V under provisions provided in the previous constitution, 1852, which did not require legislative approval. He had the authority as the monarch to approve it himself. And interestingly, he removed that prerogative from the 1864 Constitution so that neither he nor any future rulers could promulgate a constitution without the approval of the Legislative Assembly. Then 1887 came along, and a lot of sugar interests and other business interests in Hawaii drafted up their own constitution, and basically, from what we understand, forced King Kalakaua at gunpoint to sign that constitution. It's also known as the Bayonet Constitution. And in that constitution, it provides for non-citizen Americans and Europeans to participate in our political process. There's no country in the world, I don't believe, so that allows foreigners to participate in their political process. And it took the right of the vote of a lot of Kanaka Maoli away and a lot of the other non-Kanaka Maoli Hawaiians of the kingdom by requiring certain income minimum amounts and certain amount of land ownership. So the majority of the people had lost their vote in the process under the 1887 Constitution. So that Constitution was never lawfully promulgated. It required the approval of the current Legislative Assembly at that time, which was to be forwarded to the next Legislative Assembly for approval, and that never occurred. So 1887 Constitution was never lawfully promulgated, which means that the 1864 Constitution of the Hawaiian Kingdom is the last lawful constitution of the Hawaiian Kingdom. And any constitution, such as that proposed by Nai Aupuni, must meet the requirements under that constitution. It remains the remaining lawful constitution, and any amendments need to follow the procedures and requirements under the 1886 Constitution. There's no way around it. So creating a new constitution like this and trying to adopt it without meeting the requirements of 1864 is no less unlawful than the 1887 Constitution. You can't just write up a new constitution and adopt it.
So, Paka, if there is no legislative body existing today for the Hawaiian nation, how would you go? You get the legislature first and then approve a constitution the constitution as it was written at that time?
Yes.
How do you do
over the
that?
years, I've been in several different discussions, and more recently, less than a year ago, I created this Facebook group. Since so many people have access to computers now and internet technology is a modern communication line, I developed this Facebook group. It's called Destination Restoration. And we just hit our 1,000 member mark a couple of days ago, in fact. And that group is just individuals unaffiliated with any organization. We're asking anybody that has a position with one organization or whatever to leave those opinions outside, and let's just talk as people. So we talked about what's been going on, and we agreed that the restoration of our government required that we follow our lawful constitutions. So after a few months of discussion and reviewing the constitutions and how they were promulgated and stuff, the majority supported the 1864 as the last lawful constitution. And then we also have laws, we're working basically with the compiled laws of the Hawaiian Kingdom of 1884, which is fairly updated prior to the overthrow. and seeing what is provided for under the compiled laws for us to restore the kingdom. And we discovered that what it requires is that we identify the 28 election districts in the islands. So there's 28 on all islands together. And then each district elects a representative to serve in the House of Representatives.
So that was the 1864 Constitution arrangement. 28 districts?
28 districts.
28 districts.
And they're identified by place names and such. And so we're in the process of trying to track down the maps with the election district boundaries and stuff. So once the district representatives are elected, the next step will include the representatives, and that is trying to restore the House of Nobles. And that is a little bit more difficult process because the 1864 Constitution did not provide any provisions for restoring a vacant House of Nobles. No, I don't think anyone foresaw the entire government would become vacant one day. So we go back into the 1840 Constitution, because the provisions in the previous Constitution, unless they were rescinded, I believe that we can still refer to them in trying to repair the government. So in 1884, it shows us that the chiefs and the representatives together can address things in the absence of a monarch. Because the monarch would normally appoint the nobles, but in the absence of the monarch, that can't be done. So the chiefs and the House of Representatives together can move forward and decide how to restore the position of the monarch.
So this is basically your platform for saying that the Constitution that was developed in the isn't something that you can support. Yeah, you used a little bit stronger words a minute ago, but it's not something you can get behind.
I would go so far as to say any Kanaka or Hawaiian, regardless of race, that would support something like that is committing treason against their nation.
Wow.
So it's no different, in my opinion, from the 1887 Constitution that was forced on our king at gunpoint.
Okay.
And I believe this is clearly a ploy because in Public Law 103-150, they recognize that we never voluntarily relinquish our claims either to our sovereignty or to our national lands. And under this process of federal recognition, there will be an opportunity to claim that we voluntarily relinquish our claims in exchange for federal recognition. So that's the reason I oppose this so strongly. I can see clearly what they're trying to do. Unfortunately, a lot of people that don't have that clarity in seeing what's going on. And, a good example, the DOI, Department of Interior, they were proposing this rule to develop this nation-to-nation relationship. And in 2014, they went to all islands. They held, I believe it was 15 public hearings.
Yes.
And, it's much more difficult to go out into a public hearing and speak in front of an audience than to just submit postcards or whatever as testimony. All of the testimony on all of the islands was disregarded by the Department of Interior. And they decided after that, because of the huge opposition to their proposal, they're only going to accept written comments.
Right.
So all that public testimony was for naught.
Well, the public testimony was all negative, opposed to what was going on,
Yes.
as I recall.
Yeah.
That was when?
2014.
2014.
And in the written comments, there's a lot of postcards submitted, just copies of the same thing, and many of them were not even signed, but they were counted as supporting. And there was an unknown individual, I don't know who it was, submitted an online petition that DOI interpreted as in support with 50,000 names. This was submitted after the deadline, but they're counting it anyway. And if you read the language of that, it doesn't seem to be a petition that has anything to do with the DOI's proposal. So they'd be twisting everything to make it appear that we're supporting what they want to do.
So we're talking about Hawaiian sovereignty. It's Bob Martin, it's Kohala Conversations, talking with Fred Cachola, Clarence Ching, or Ku, and Isaac Harp, or Paka. So we're at the point now where Paka has explained his reasons for not supporting the efforts done. And Ku, would you like to jump in here and just say, I know you went to this convention, but then concluded at the end that the Constitution wasn't something you could vote for. So what is your way of thinking about this in terms of where you got to?
Well, I'm glad that Paka brought up what he did bring up. However, what he said, and in relationship to the AHA, they don't really go hand in hand. And what I'm saying is this, and this is one of the reasons why I had to vote no, because the proposed Constitution does not refer to any historical fact. It doesn't recognize, doesn't acknowledge, doesn't do anything about Hawaiian history, including the constitutions that Paka brought up. And so, because there was no historical connections of this constitution with those constitutions of the kingdom, this was one of the things I used to decide that I couldn't vote yes. So, from a historical point of view, this new constitution is a brand new nation, starting out right now with no connection to past history, the kingdom. It doesn't even have a definition of where it's located, other than it talks about the islands and the seas and things like that, just in general, nothing specific.
All the land to be determined.
You can put it that way. And so to me, this was a big problem with the proposed constitution, and this is one of the reasons, of more than one reason, I couldn't vote for it.
So Fred Cachola, what do you, you've been quiet for a long time, I know it's hard.
Yeah,
What are you thinking over there?
Well, even before this, when I say, okay, Fred, if you had your way and you could do whatever you want to make things right, where would you go? And I'd say January 16th, 1893. It's one day before the overthrow. January 16th, there was a legislature in Assembly. They were duly elected, that were operating with the Constitution of 1864 and functioning. Okay?
Correction. They're operating on
1887. I mean, the Bennett Constitution.
Right.
And I said, anybody who does not agree to the continuity of that government, I felt the same way with Paka. You're just as guilty as the ones who overthrew it. You're saying, in effect, oh, well, that happened, but you know what, that's okay, we're going to do this. And my sense of the continuity of the legitimacy of the government was very important. And during this Constitution, I was fighting like hell for that. I was saying, I was in a preamble committee, and I wanted to have some sense of continuity between this Constitution and the legitimacy of our previous constitutions. And this is one reason why historical facts were declared and passed. Now, these historical facts were discussed at the AHA. And
they are in the Declaration, but not in the Constitution.
yes, see,
That's
okay.
the problem.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is, well, first of all, the AHA did not ignore historical facts. In fact, here's the answer. And you want to read this 4-page declaration? This was passed unanimously.
Everybody.
This was unanimous, it wasn't.
I don't know if I voted for that.
But look at the record, please. This was unanimous. Everybody said, we agree with the historical facts. This is the historical facts that gives us enduring sovereignty. Okay.
If the Declaration had been built into, let's say, something right before the preamble, or maybe as a part of the preamble, would that have helped either one of you two
I don't know, because there are other
No.
complications.
I think it would have helped me, but I don't know if I would have
Done it that way.
gone all the way and voted yes, because there were
Okay.
other reasons why I voted, I decided to vote
That
no.
helped a little bit. That would get rid of
Yeah,
one
you move it 1 inch over there when you might have needed a foot.
foot. Okay.
And we did take a look at, okay, how can the Constitution of 1864 be amended? This Constitution, amendments to this Constitution may be proposed in the Legislative Assembly, which
That's
means
the
we
only
have to
way,
restore the Legislative Assembly, right? So you have to restore the Legislative Assembly as it appeared on the morning of January 16th. January 16th, 1893. So you either have another election, this is the Legislative Assembly, and they can convene for 15 minutes just to adopt a new constitution contemporary for today.
Yeah, so we do
They
plan
could-
on restoring our legislative assembly without government funding to contaminate it. There were previous efforts with state funding to try and restore a Hawaiian government, but a lot of people refused to participate because of the contamination, excuse me, by funding with the occupier's funds. The occupier cannot have any part in determining the self-determination of the occupied nation because it's simply considered a war crime. So they shouldn't be involved in any shape or form, such as with Aupuni, the state of Hawaii, developing Act 195, OHA funding it.
Precisely why, if we have a few minutes to see what happens now.
Yeah.
What-
Well, wait,
Is it
let's
precisely why?
Let's take a break. Let's take a break because we've been talking about a half an hour here. Let's give the listeners a little break.
Mention this before we get done.
Sure.
So I love the declaration,
Okay.
but unfortunately, all the folks on the federal recognition team wanted was to get the Constitution passed. They'd be willing to throw you any chicken feed beside the Constitution. So this doesn't really matter for beans. What matters is the language in the Constitution. They got what they want, so they'd be willing to give you anything else you want.
All right.
They did not get what they want.
All right.
They did not get what they
So
want.
we're going to be back.
I can give you an example.
We're going to be right back after this
Give
break.
you an example
and,
that they
this
did
is,
not get what they want.
KNKR LP 96.1 FM. So we'll be right back.
They got both of them.
How did you guys drive over here in the same car?
I come right in the back on the way back.
And the last time, and I did get
I bet you didn't talk about this over.
some of my Kohala friends called me after the last one. They said, "Fred, is that true? The chairman brought it up 5 times?" I said, "Yes," because the Kahului people did not want that word in pursuit of independence. And they fought it 5 times, and the chairman
That's in the.
allowed it to be discussed 5 times. And I was,
Robin Danner ended up crying over that.
she cried.
No, that was
that's the next to
Jada.
last sentence of the preamble.
Jada.
Pursuit of independence.
Jada didn't cry.
She cried, she cried. She was
Lily
allowed-
Kala was crying.
Does
I heard.
anybody need to go to the bathroom or anything? If we could keep playing music for a few minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That'd be good.
So, Dana and Lily Kala
Get
guys
them.
never
There's
got
crying.
what they wanted. She cried. I was in that
Why was she
meeting.
crying?
Because they put the independence language in, yeah?
Because she
why was
wanted
she-
us to
They want
eliminate-
Fed Rec.
eliminate in pursuit of independence.
Why?
Yes.
Because
It
would
leaves it
go
open.
bad- It would go bad
Yes.
with the Department of Interior
Interior.
folks.
Okay, yes.
So
Because they
it
wouldn't
would-
like that. That's not
It
what they would
it
want.
wouldn't allow us to become part of that.
We had that conversation in our last.
Right.
Yeah, and 5 times, and finally I told the chairman, I don't know what rules you're going by, but this is the 5th time you bring it up for vote.
You
We're not
know,
gonna do this again.
Fred, I tell you, how do you take, this is just 3 people, and there's literally, from what I see online, thousands of people who are engaged in this conversation, many of which come from entirely different points of view, can't hardly get aligned with any general conclusions. It's amazing to me.
Well, we can't come to a conclusion with the historical facts. Nobody can deny historical facts.
Well, that's true.
Nobody can
No.
deny this. But, and if we could have, I tried, if we could have had some way of you making this constitution a proposed amendment to the last legitimate constitution, I would have been overjoyed. I couldn't. I tried. Didn't happen.
Did someone propose that you just adopt the 1864
They did.
Constitution?
Oh, no, I think,
No,
didn't
no.
they?
No, we
Didn't somebody bring it up?
We talked about the 1864 as a legitimate, we all agreed
Yeah.
that was the most legitimate constitution. And so my thing was, then why don't we make this an amendment of that? And it was like, oh, come on, Fred, we cannot go do all that.
Well,
And I said, you guys are now just like overthrowing the 1864 constitution. We just eliminate it.
well, from these two guys' point of view, taking money from Ohio damaged the process some.
You know?
And I don't know. And agreeing on the past is one thing, history had to go forward. We're going to have that conversation one of these nights. But that's a challenge to
It is a challenge.
I mean,
It
because
is
you
a
all
challenge.
care about the whole
Well,
ball of wax that you're dealing with, but rolling that bad boy forward is,
but the United States of America and the interest in Hawaii that they've developed. And what another point we gotta make is this. We had 91 treaties, and guess what? When those countries saw what the United States did to Hawaii, they all backed off. They all backed off. They allowed the United States to illegally annex. They didn't say, hey, wait a minute, Belgium opposes to it. Hey, wait a minute, Luxembourg opposes. Hey, wait a minute, Russia opposes. They didn't. Why?
But they were assisted because they listened to the United States when it said, anybody who opposes this action and all that, we are going to consider to be acts of war.
Right.
So they all backed off.
It was a threat. It was a threat.
yeah,
So the treaties didn't, they had treaties, they all backed off, they all chickened out. The Civil War, Spanish-American War, you see what we did in Manila? You see what we did in Havana? Anybody against what we're doing in Hawaii?
Watch out.
Watch out. Watch out. And everybody backed off. And just allowed the US to do it.
About 40 seconds.
okay. So which way do you want to go from here? We got about a half an hour, so you
Well, I
want
think we can share about,
We could go for another.
We can talk all night, huh? What happens now, because
come back, I will.
We've hardly touched the surface of this
Yes.
thing.
I think what we're
deep well
doing
on the
is,
subject for sure.
none of us are getting paid to do this.
None of us are either.
Nobody's saying.
Nobody here either.
That's a good sign.
Not a penny in this place,
My
but
kind of people.
That's a good sign. For
But
love.
that's right,
For
actually.
love.
Well, actually, it's for the community.
but there is
For
a
love.
group, Brandon Lee, who was chairman, made a point. He said, anybody who's volunteering to do this, please let us know. And they formed a website, and they're taking contributions, donations. Everybody's looking at how can we get private money to continue discussions on this issue. Never mind just to talk about it.
Maybe that's what we should close up with.
Yeah.
10 seconds. 10 seconds.
You hear
Oh,
that?
Kindi.
Aloha again, Kohala. This is Bob Martin with Kohala Conversations. We're having a roundtable discussion with three entirely different points of view about a very important subject, Hawaiian sovereignty, tonight with Fred Cachola and my other guests,
Ching.
Ching and Paka. So, with about a half an hour left, we've discovered that there are three, I think, very distinct points of view about the about Hawaiian sovereignty and how to get to that, and how to avoid the pitfalls with the federal government in various ways along with a myriad of other topics. Koo and the break just said we're just getting started on this subject, and so maybe we can do another show on this. But so where have we gotten to? Do we need to go into anything else in terms of the Constitution that was passed? Any issues that you want to talk about in that respect?
Well, to
Around the
be
table?
honest, tonight's show is simply providing information.
Yes.
And there's one bit of information I think we should provide that did happen twice, is that they were very vehement protesters who stood at the gates, blocked traffic, prevented delegates from going into the convention. And
Got
ended up-
arrested,
And got arrested.
and they went to court
And
today
they
in
went to court.
Kaneohe.
Yeah. And they handed out,
And Fred is holding up some paper with red ribbons on it. What is that?
one is the red ribbon letter, and it's Queen Lilokelana's letter of protest
Oh.
to the proposed treaty of the United States. The other is rejecting and condemning Nai Aupuni Aha.
Okay.
And
So-
the prominent names here, they're prominent like John Osorio, Terry Kekoholani, Walter Reed, and many others. So I want to inform people that while the hour was going on, there was vehement opposition to it. And this was made known. Safety and security became a big issue. And we were practically, we searched every day before we got into the
Wow.
convention hall.
Yeah, I forgot to mention as we started after the break that we are very interested in receiving phone calls. We would really like it if you could call in and ask questions, because we've got a team of experts here that can answer them about Hawaiian sovereignty. So there was a big protest at the AHA, and
Yeah, the other
security
thing I
was an
did want
issue.
to make sure that was known
Let me give the number. of the
is,
phone call.
and this is just pure information, Nai Aupuni and others who organized this said, for the first week, we're just going to learn.
I want to give that number again. Excuse me, Fred, I'm sorry. 884 KNKR, 884-5657. Please give us a call if you have questions or comments. So go ahead,
I
Fred.
just want to show that, we did meet, and I was really impressed with the makeup and the determination of the group that was there. But the first week, we didn't even talk about the Constitution. We just said, we're here to learn, and we got the best experts they could find. Among them was Dr. Tutsi from the University of Arizona, talking about federal Indian law. We got Catherine Magallanes talking about international law and deoccupation and decolonization. We got Debiana McGregor talking about kingdom law. We got Hawkins from the University of Texas talking about constitutional building process. He's an expert in constitution. And we got Melody McKenzie talking about the U.S. constitutional issues and ceded lands in Hawaii. This was all so very informative. And I think what it did was give us enough broad background that some of the issues we're dealing with are very complicated, And, but having that 1 week of time to sit and talk about these issues as they were seen by different experts, I think was excellent.
So that led to the final 2 weeks being to construct both the Constitution and the Declaration. So you
3 weeks, and then
well, you were there a month or total?
1 month, 20
Oh, I
days.
thought it was only 3. So you had 3 weeks to do that.
Yeah, and then of course it took us a whole day just to make sure we proposed the right ground rules of aloha and respect and how we're going to conduct ourselves.
That weren't exactly followed either,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned.
So say that again. What did you?
Well, what Fred just said is that we spent a lot of time setting up the rules for our operations.
How you were going to do things.
And my comment was, and they didn't follow the rules either. But that's another story. I mean, we're talking about a very complex situation.
Sounds like it. So they set the ground rules, but then at times they failed to follow them, particularly.
That's what I believe.
Like maybe on issues that you were keen about. Is that you?
Well, one of them was that we were all supposed to respect acknowledge each other, respect each other and all that. And there were times when this rule didn't rule. And so there was a lot of, there was not a lot of, there were examples of head-to-head confrontation, actually, what happened, name calling and all that, which I was very upset about.
Were people standing up and going up to a microphone and making comments to the entire group and disagreeing?
Something like that.
Kind of,
Yeah.
just short of a fist fight or something, or was it more diplomatic?
There were times when things got to be somewhat confrontational.
Heated.
That's what I think, but Fred may have a totally
It was
different
an
idea.
emotional issue. It was a very emotional issue. People were pouring their guts
A
out
lot
there.
of emotional
There were
issues.
tears and anger and hurts. And I mean, I heard testimony there that I've never heard before. And it was heartrending to hear and to feel the anger and frustration that being said. Can you imagine what it's like to finally begin to know the truth? And for some people over there, they were just beginning to find that out. And it was a very emotional experience. And of course, I gotta say that the three words in that whole Constitution that went on for days was in pursuit of independence. And there were many people who did not want those three words in there. And unfortunately, the chairman of that committee allowed it to become under discussion 5 different times, 5 different votes. And I finally looked at him and I said, you gotta be kidding. You know, you're acting as chairman and you're bringing this thing up again and again and again. And we just refused to vote anymore. Because I think he was really deliberate trying to eliminate those 3 words.
So Fred,
But those 3 words were not eliminated.
the phrase in pursuit of the pursuit of independence is in the preamble.
Yes.
And they voted 5 times, you said?
Yes.
They kept approving it when the chair wanted it out.
Yes.
On the basis that it
That
might
is my
irritate-
opinion, that is my opinion. He will disagree with me, but I will keep saying.
I agree.
That he
You
should not.
agree?
I'm agreeing with what Fred is saying, yeah.
I believe he deliberately tried to eliminate that by bringing it up 5 different times. And
I also agree with that statement. I believe those words lessen the chance of federal recognition.
of course it was.
Government to government.
Right.
Yeah. Which doesn't bother you at all, since you don't think that's the right path anyway. You think that's
Not at all.
talking to,
And the Constitution itself, it was just the wrong body to draft up the Constitution. It requires the Legislative Assembly
yeah.
to propose that.
Actually, the story behind what Paka just brought up is this, that the DOI has been working on changing its rules in order to entertain the possibilities of Hawaii having a government-to-government relationship with the United States. So, it has come up with different rules on how things have to be. In other words, the Hawaiian entity has to put together certain rules, certain conditions, certain whatevers to comply with their requirements. And one of their requirements is that, well, as we've talked about earlier, to become something like an Indian tribe.
Right.
Indian tribes cannot pursue independence.
Right.
And so, when these 3 words are included in this preamble, it takes this whole proposed constitution out of the possibilities that the Department of Interior will adopt this idea of Hawaiian sovereignty and
Said another
this
way,
relationship.
this Constitution as approved is not going to be particularly appreciated or accepted by the Department of Interior or the federal government.
Unless they go ahead and change the rules again. This has been a running series of changing ships in the middle of the river.
Mid-game, changing the rules mid-game.
They keep on making new rules as they go along. And
Well, they're trying to find a solution to solve everybody's problem, except for the one that you want, which is to restore the kingdom.
I think it's more like they're trying to solve their problem.
Well,
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, not our problem, their problem.
Their problem. Okay.
They have been trying for, this is, the day of reckoning is coming for the United States. They have already apologized, they have admitted the illegality, and they're trying to reconcile it. And the best way they can is for us to reconcile ourselves to be subject to them, continuing subjects for them.
Well,
They said that's the best way.
Under
Continue to
their
be
plenary
subjects under
powers.
our rules. And Hawaiian said, I don't think so. And now what? Can you
well, that's a
realize
really
the
good question.
implications
Now
of-
what? Now what?
Well,
There's been the Aupuni process. And on the other side of the fence, there's a people's process that is currently going on under what is called Aha Aloha Aina. And we've been holding open meetings. Anybody is welcome to come and participate. We've held 6 meetings on this island alone so far. It's a purely volunteer effort, and we're using what is called the Kino model. The Kino is the human body, a form of a human body. And this is from ancient times that was discovered by David Malo, who reintroduced that. And under the Kino model, everyone in the community had a place where they belonged in this model of civil polity. And like, for example, on one hand, you had the kahuna, the spiritual leaders and such, doctors and things. On the other, you have the political folks, the politician guys, the attorneys, law type folks. And on one foot, you had the Hawaiian, Mahiai, food producers, food preparers, chefs, and all that type of people. And on the other foot, you had like law enforcement, military type folks. And there was a new component added called Manowai, which is the communications type area. So everybody can find a place where they belong in the discussion. So when we hold these meetings, we break out into these different groups. Everybody can participate in expressing their opinions of what's going on in this and that. And I believe the most important of all the groups, some people might think it might be the military side or the enforcement or the political side. But for me personally, I believe the most important component is the Lawai'a Mahiai folks, the people that feed us. Because without food and clean water, we're worthless. We won't be here if we didn't have food and water. I think we need to support that, and there's a lot of young people involved. And you've seen what us older folks have done to mess up the planet. So they're looking at this sustainable type of food production activity, and I'm glad that a lot of young people are getting involved, and even a lot of older people are looking at organic production, getting away from the pesticides.
We sing a lot of that here in Kohala, that's for sure.
So I'm really happy for that. So I really think we need to support the food producers in Hawaii. We need to stop importing all this food that we're not really sure what we're eating in all this imported stuff. We don't know how they grow it, what pesticides or whatever they're using, if it's genetically modified. So I don't believe all products that are imported are required to be labeled if they're genetically modified. So it's kind of a guessing game of what you're eating. And the old saying is you are what you eat.
Yeah.
But anybody interested in participating in that process, we're going to be holding more meetings on this island as well as every other island. They're all holding their own meetings.
Do you have a website or some?
Oh
place?
yes, we do. For that particular effort, it's the website address is ahaalohaaina.com.
All one word,
All one word.
.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we also have another Facebook group that is related to the Na'i Aupuni process. And if you're a Facebook, you have a Facebook, you can go protest Na'i Aupuni. So that's another one of our organizations. And like I mentioned earlier, if you're interested in restoring the Hawaiian Kingdom government, we have the Destination Restoration Site. And there's also a lot of other groups and organizations out there working on their own processes. But eventually one day, we're all gonna have to come together and agree on one process, and that's the only way we're gonna move forward. You know,
How do you think that can happen?
I think it's happening right now. So a lot of the groups and organizations used to just stay on their own and discuss things with their own membership. But now there's groups and organizations. Recently, Carrie Correa, she's been providing educational opportunities from the perspective of the lawful Hawaiian government. And she's encouraging the people that if they don't want to join the lawful Hawaiian government, join another group. Just get involved. It's time for people to come together.
And that's what I agree with Bob. You know, I think what goes on right now is there should be more discussions like this among Hawaiians. There really should be. And that's why I invited Ku and Paka to be here. We're not being paid.
Right.
We're not wearing, there is no nai Aupuni anymore. I'm not wearing a nai Aupuni hat. Neither is Ku, no one told us to wear their hats. We're here as Hawaiians. And we're here to inform. And, you know,
Maybe that's why we can drive back to Waimea
yeah.
together in the same vehicle. After this.
But you know, what's happening now is that there are votes. It's one more big point.
Yeah.
There are the leadership group and some others from the Constitutional Convention also have a website. And they're seeking donations. And they're encouraging people to discuss this. Okay? There is no nai Aupuni, pow. That's out, gone. Okay, it's that more Hawaiians saying we gotta continue talking about this.
Well, the next step forward in one respect is whether or not this effort that came out of the AHA is going to be ratified, and how that could happen, and how the voting, who gets to vote in that is going to be dealt with. So that's a step, I would imagine, that's coming sometime during the next year or so.
And more Hawaiians should talk about that.
Yeah.
More Hawaiians should talk about that. All Hawaiians should talk about it.
So the big question becomes, should I sign up so that I can vote on this ratification, either up or down,
Yes.
or not sign up? And the way it is, a lot of people, like Paka, has decided to boycott the whole operation.
So Paka is saying, I'm not signing up.
He's not signed up because he wants to avoid any connection with this whole
Not even
process
to
at
vote
all.
no?
Not even to vote no.
Okay, so you got to decide what you're
I'm the guy that says, I am going to sign up because I am going to vote no.
You should get a voice.
Yeah. But before we go any further, let me bring up another important thing, issue for me
I'd like to hear it.
on this process that has helped me to make my no vote. And that is that the Hawaiian Kingdom was not a racially based governmental entity
In like
It was-
1893.
prior to 1893. From 18,
back. Yeah.
right. All people, all peoples, all races were welcome, as Fred mentioned earlier.
Yes. And could participate in voting in the government
Yeah.
as that occurred.
Yeah,
And
okay,
since
now,
1852.
Yes.
the DOI, the Department of Interior, as one of its conditions, requires that only Hawaiians can be in the process, or in process in the first constitution. And so, with my wanting to follow the old rules, the old constitutions and all that, I wouldn't vote for this constitution because it's a Hawaiian-only constitution. Now, there are a lot of reasons why we should have all Hawaiian or everybody else, or, you know, there are all these different reasons. But I guess I'm sort of a traditional type of guy, and I can't go along with that idea, and especially since it's one of the conditions of the DOI. But to me, the racial makeup of the kingdom and how we relate to others in the world is very important.
Yes. Well, the last time I looked the Native Hawaiians were somewhere around a third of the population in Hawaii. And so it begs the question of all the people, the immigrants over the years, and families of immigrants and so forth, going back generations. How do they sit on the sidelines and watch, and what does that kind of mean to the state, to the country, to the new kingdom, or however it turns out? So that's a pretty good question. I mean, that's a pretty good point of view in terms of questions about how the state, how we can go forward. So,
And you know,
what do you got to say, Paka? You got.
I want to just comment on why I am boycotting the vote on this constitution. So the Department of Interior requires a certain number of participants in the process, whether you vote up or down. And I know in a lot of processes where people vote, corruption can occur. For example, the President of the United States is, you would think it would only happen in a third world country, but the loser in a presidential election can prevail. So this little thing could certainly be manipulated.
Are you referring to Bush and?
The
I'm not
chats.
mentioning any names, but thank you for that.
I'm trying to understand, what
Yeah.
our listeners to understand.
And, you know, in the current U.S. presidential election, the Democrats anyway, I do hope that Bernie gets in there because he's already taken a position that he would leave it to the Kanaka-Maoli, the people of Hawaii, Hawaiians, to decide on the future status of our country. And I appreciate that, and all I ask Bernie is to please try not to assist us with the DOI or anything else like that. You might consider returning our treasury to us so we can fund ourselves. But yeah, that's I want to comment on why I'm not participating in that vote particularly, because it would add to the numbers required, the minimum number that DOI required to participate in the process. And I'm afraid that even if it's voted down, it will still prevail. So there's too much room for manipulation of those types of elections or votes or whatever.
but I would really encourage your group then to write your own constitution. And
Can
make it a
We
continuity.
can't- I tried to explain earlier that we cannot write our own constitution.
Adopt
It's the legislative assembly that must propose the constitution. So you need to, if somebody's gonna write a draft constitution, you need to submit it to them and they need to approve it.
But that amendment has to be approved by the king.
Yes.
There has to be a king.
So it needs to go through actually 2 legislative assemblies.
Right.
It needs to be approved by one and then submitted to the following legislative assembly.
And then approved by the king.
If they adopt it, then the king approves it.
And who's the king?
We need to restore the House of Representatives, the House of Nobles, and the monarch.
But
Okay.
Paka,
And
Restore,
that-
that's really critical.
Yeah.
Restore the House of Nobles, restore the House of Representatives, and restore the kingdom, the king. Because all that is necessary for the Constitution of 1864 to be amended
Yeah.
properly. Okay,
And
and
so-
so, but what I'm saying is, who is proposing an amendment? Besides getting the election going and restoring the king, is there work for an amendment to that constitution? Where is the
I
amendment?
think the amendments will be common sense amendments of
Okay.
what we need to survive today.
Someone making common sense amendments now? Who's making common sense amendments to propose?
I think it's premature to be making proposed amendments at this time because we have a lot of work to do to restore the entire legislature, which is the legislative assembly as well as the monarch.
So when do you think the legislative assembly will be restored, the monarchy, the king will be on the throne, and then a group will say, here's some amendments? How long, when will that happen?
It depends on how much interference the United States continues to throw into the process.
What's your
but
opinion?
In my
10 years?
opinion, it
10
may
years?
not occur during my lifetime.
Okay, good,
But
I'm glad to hear
going to
that.
do as much as I can because several generations have already suffered and I'm not gonna give up the chances for the future generations to enjoy what they deserve.
I'm glad to hear that, Paka, because, Hawaiians have suffered for 200 years.
Yeah.
But
And
maybe,
it may take 200 years to make it right.
but maybe we don't really need this discussion, because in this proposed constitution, starting from scratch, with no historical references, etc., whatever, you don't have to even ask that question. You just start right here from ground zero and go, and you don't have to worry about all these historical connections.
Correct, and that's.
And maybe that is why they set it up that way. I don't know.
No,
I just don't
true.
like it.
Because, I tried in my committee, I went to several committees to try to get some sense of continuity,
Yes.
legitimate continuity, and make this constitution an amendment, proposed amendment. Couldn't do it, could not do it. And I think for the very reason you said, because it's gonna take too long and too complicated to restore correctly and accurately a kingdom and a constitution and a legislative assembly that legitimatizes any change at all.
Yes, yes.
And so why go through
Yeah.
that?
And so when you look at this proposed constitution, and you see terms like our national lands, and people like me are wondering, okay, if they're starting from scratch, what national lands are they referring to? Well, they must be referring to the kingdom's lands that they are trying to discontinue from.
They can't have any of the land within these coordinates.
But you cannot have it both ways. You gotta go one way or the other. And so for me, it's not logical, it's not legally logical, and that's why I had to
So that's
vote no.
another issue that you find in the.
Another one, yes.
Another one, so you have several
You know, who
issues.
knows, 120 Hawaiians may get together next year and say, we got a constitution. Another 120
But they've gotta get this
Hawaiians.
thing ratified by a number.
Kalahui may come up and say, oh, by the way, we looked at this and here's our constitution.
Yeah.
Let's ratify that. Who wants to ratify this?
Let me, we got about 5 minutes left here, and I want to just talk around the table about this question. Based on the 2 hours we spent tonight, the four of us, do any of you have interest in continuing this conversation, taking it further, making additional points, helping Kohala understand better where you're coming from?
I would love for Kohala to be more, but I'd like to have other people come in here besides us.
Okay,
People who just want to sit and talk story.
right.
So, and if we can encourage people in Kohala to do so,
Well, we would certainly welcome people in Kohala. We can do about 4 or 5 at a sitting, as you can see around this table. And thing that I would say is for us to go out and recruit them is probably not going to be very workable. But if you've got people, Fred, or people here or on the Big Island that you know that are interested in this, that want to come and talk about their respective points of view, or if you two want to come back and talk, that would be great. So,
well, what might be possible is that the group that came from the Big Island, there were 18 of us.
yes.
When asked the question, how many of you would still like to be on our list of service? How many of you would still like to be? I think we still had about 8 or 9 said, yes, count me as a continuing group for discussion. And he had one that he wanted to invite. Maybe we can ask her and others who are saying we don't mind continuing to talk about this. So it'll be other people besides us, but they have definite opinions on what is and what should be.
Well, I would be really happy to leave it in your hands, and you call me and tell me when you want to go back on the air and how many people you want to bring. I mean, Koo, what are you thinking about that?
Well, I'm thinking that anytime, there's a need for my participation, I'm here.
Well, I think your opinions are very valuable. You've taught me a lot about this tonight and what you've been saying. So,
Really?
well, yeah, I hadn't thought about the reasons why you didn't vote yes. I hadn't seen those ideas before, so that was helpful. Paka, you got any thoughts about it? Do you want to continue this or?
I would like to request an invitation for representatives of the people's process, aha, aloha aina, so that we can share the work we're doing, which involves the people, rather than us drafting something and proposing it to the people. We asking the people to share their opinion and stuff. So it's a bottom-up effort,
So,
not funded by anyone but ourselves.
so you're suggesting that maybe we could do a show with you and a couple of your volunteers,
Yes.
associates, sitting around the table talking about your particular point of view and where you're going and how the people here in Kohala have an opportunity to sign up in your
Yeah, so
group.
there's
and help.
nothing to sign up, it's just
That's what I
a
mean.
process
Get
to
involved.
share your opinions and
Yeah.
start the discussion
Okay.
in the community.
And
Because I believe the nation belongs to the people, so the people need to determine our future. That's what self-determination is all about.
Do you have associates who maybe live here in Kohala? Think you could?
I'm not sure, we have some in South Kohala, not in North Kohala. So you
Well,
can boost your power, you just go over to us.
I would be particularly interested in anything you want to do with your associates, but the closer you can get to Kohala, somebody from Kohala, that would really,
Okay.
that would help
Yeah,
us.
so we are planning a meeting in Kohala in the near future. So we don't just force ourselves into community.
Sure.
We wait for people to invite us. So
Well-
we have been invited
Well,
to
let
meetings
me
in
give you
Kohala.
the invitation that before that meeting, if you want to stir up some people who to come to that meeting, to come in and talk with us, we can do an hour or whatever. So just let me know.
Terrific.
I think at this point, it's 8 o'clock. I'm going to just call it a day.
Yeah, well, I want to say
Anything else?
thank you of all of us.
Thank you all.
And I think, 5, 10 years ago, this kind of discussion would never even occur. And I'm so happy that, you've got enough interest in Hawaiian issues to put it on your radio station and to allow us friends to talk about our manao.
Well, thank you.
I think that's great.
Well, it's a pleasure to have all of you, and really nice meeting you all, and, yeah.
Can I just give a couple closing remarks? I heard some language shared on the table, such as mainland. A lot of people refer to the United States as the mainland. This here is our mainland. That is a foreign country. It's the
Did I say mainland?
It's North
I take it back.
America. No, actually, Cachola, they said that. And I heard reference to Kanakamaoli as Hawaiian. And Hawaiian is citizens of the Hawaiian Kingdom regardless of race. So it's an inclusionary process. And from 1852 forward, the citizenship of the Hawaiian Kingdom was open for naturalization to any race. Slavery was banished in Hawaii.
A lot of slaves came to
Yeah.
Hawaii.
And, well, there's still a few million slaves in captivity in the United States. And, I think this is the example, we need to restore this example of how people of various races in the world can live in harmony and together in peace.
And what a small, very small pot, but a very interesting pot of people here in Kohala, which
Yes.
is one of the reasons we all like to live here, to see how that works
Yeah.
out. So it's a good place to start. Ku, anything? Final words?
Do we really have the time? No, I think it's very important that the people become educated on issues. OHA, for instance, has had millions of dollars go through their hands, but they pursued federal recognition. They weren't interested in education. Hopefully, some of what we did tonight was to educate the people on some of the issues involved in discussions of sovereignty. The other thing I would like to encourage the people, the listeners on, is to send in your questions, because it would really help to guide us in directions that we probably should go that we may not be, including at this point. So that would be very important to do.
Yes. Yeah, well, we were working hard at that. So with my deep appreciation to all three of you, thank you very much. Mahalo. This is Bob Martin, Kohala Conversations, signing off for this evening. It's top of the hour, just after 8 o'clock. KNKR LP 96.1 FM, Kohala, signing off. Thank you very much for listening.
Mahalo staff.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys are great.
Hope we can get some rest now.
Well,
Probably
Let me make
get
another
back
point.
and everything.
One more point.
Go ahead.
In this proposed constitution, there is not a definition nor a note to even define some of the terms, the terms that are being used. To me, there are so many deficits in this thing, I cannot possibly, well, in actuality, I couldn't get past the first line, because I don't even like the term Constitution of the Native Hawaiian Nation.
well,
So-
that hangs you up right there because it
I-
wears it down to the point where
Yeah.
it's not going to work for you.
Yeah, well, you know,
So,
given 20 days,
get what?
given 20 days, I'm still amazed that we came up with anything at all.
Well, yeah.
I mean, and the discussions and the emotion that went on, I'm really surprised that
It's fine.
a document was produced. And it's not the best, there's a lot of things that it has to happen.
Yes,
Do you have any suspicion that some of that language may have been prepared in advance?
No,
Oh.
no. Because I went to the committee.
I cannot agree with Fred, because, okay, but the big problem, Fred,
The committees I went to, Paka,
but,
they were arguing
but-
back and forth.
But the big problem was the committee outputs had to go to the drafting committee.
But anybody could be on there.
Yeah, but when the drafting committee output came back, it wasn't always the same thing that went in.
But the drafting committee was open doors to anybody, anytime, and they kept saying that, anybody can go in the drafting committee. And so, if it wasn't, if it was a closed door thing, I would have screamed. Oh, this is a drafting committee, now what we come up with. No. I went to the drafting committee and they seem to be changing every day.
That's my card.
Okay,
So,
We're on a budget.
I'm glad they were.
nicer card than I have. Yeah. Can I get it?
Oh, let me take a picture of it. Oh, wait, you know what, better yet, cell phone
Right
picture.
on there, you
Wait,
can see.
let me.
But in pursuit
Yeah,
of
get Chloe in the background.
in pursuit of
If you want to
independence
contact
was,
me and do anything,
Okay,
let me know.
let's see.
With or
Got
without
it.
Dr. Fred. You guys are doing good work. You're onto it.
Well, actually, I will have to say this. That when you're in Hawaii, and especially when you're hanging around or talking to Hawaiians,
Regardless of
If-
race.
Regardless of race.
if they don't practice aloha, they're not really Hawaiians.
Yes.
And so,
Well,
we can go through
That's
confrontations
the first
and,
prerequisite.
and attacks and all that. And if you don't, and if you remember who you are, where you came from, where you gotta go, I have to sit here and talk to Fred and then argue with him and all that kind of stuff for whichever way it comes out.
yeah.
and so I had no qualms when I said, let's bring these two guys on board, It bothered me.
I was so excited when I got your email, you're gonna have these Pakas come in. It's like, oh, wow, don't even know any of these guys. We're gonna have a good time, so. thank you
But
for coming.
let me tell you my most emotional experience at the AHA. Because one day, the question was, how much transparency do we do at the AHA? In other words, how do we get whatever goes on here out to
Into the
the
community.
people?
Yeah, that's.
And my personal position was it should be as open as possible. The TV cameras should be on all the time. And so they had a vote. Oh, okay. There was also a citizen group that came to help to convince the AHA what we should do. That was to be transparent. as part of their, call it ritual, they brought a rock. And it was a rock that they named Kaumaha. And Kaumaha in Hawaiian is,
Kamaha is a obligatory responsibility
all of
you
that kind
carry
of stuff.
with you, no matter what. And you carry this with you. And that
And so
rock
they brought that rock.
was to remind us,
And I took that really seriously.
yeah,
In fact, I would visit the rock every day.
Really? Where did they have the rock?
We had a
Oh, they were
little
pass-
table on the
passing it
side.
around.
Oh,
Because
Pat.
people
And then we had a little table a lot of the time.
Yeah. But that rock was a reminder that we carry a tremendous obligation with us. And people would sit in there half the day sometimes just holding that rock, not wanting to get the full emotional experiencing of carrying that load.
But I will say, unfortunately, there were quite a few people in the room that didn't care.
Yeah.
They were there, but they didn't care about the rock, or they didn't care?
I felt
Enough
they didn't
about-
care about the rock and the
Oh.
load that we were carrying,
The load you were carrying.
or should have been carrying.
I kind of see it as a sad statement that we need to be reminded of our kuleana.
Yeah.
So I think it's an inherent thing that we should know without having to be reminded by carrying a
Well,
rock.
the
or
people who
anything
brought the
else,
rock thought we should be reminded.
Yeah.
They said, you guys know what you carry? You guys know the load?
That was quite a good size pohaku too, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
It weighed at least 50 pounds.
Yeah.
Really?
And after the aha, it went over to Bumpy's place, where it's now living.
Yeah.